Hello and welcome to the Luv Doc podcast with hosts Waldo Wachewski and Ophelia Brewski.
I'm just so glad you decided to join us today.
Yeah, it's really great to have you here with us.
So if you have ever set a massive, a life-changing goal for yourself, maybe on New Year's Eve or after a particularly rough patch in your life, and then watch that goal just slowly unravel by February, you are in exactly the right place today.
We've all been there.
We really have. Today, we are immersing ourselves in a Luv Doc that tackles this exact universal human experience. And we are going to be unpacking a specific letter sent to the doc by a reader who signs off with the pen name Saturday Sloth. And the response they receive completely turns standard fitness and motivation advice on its head.
It really does. And what makes this text so rich is how it operates on two distinct levels.
Right.
On the surface, we're looking at a fairly straightforward letter about a failed New Year's fitness resolution, you know? The reader just can't seem to get to the gym on the weekends anymore and wants a quick fix for their motivation.
Just a standard advice column set up.
Exactly. But if we peel back the layers of the Luv Doc's very chaotic, highly comedic response, we find a profound psychological exploration of the guilt and shame spiral.
Oh, yeah.
It is an essay about the absolute necessity of self-forgiveness, the cognitive load of anxiety, and how we have to actively shift our internal narratives when we inevitably stumble. Our mission is to extract that genuine life wisdom hidden beneath all the humor.
I love that. Let's start with the letter itself, because Saturday Sloth's predicament is just incredibly common. So the reader writes in and explains that they had a bruising previous year. They went through a tough breakup. They battled depression for the better part of 12 months, and as a result, they gained some weight.
A really heavy year.
A terrible year. And they hit that familiar breaking point where the pain of staying the same finally outweighs the pain of changing. So the gym felt like the logical place to start rebuilding.
Which is a very positive impulse.
Right. So they make a New Year's resolution. But they don't just commit to working out a few times a week. They decide they're going to go to the gym every single day.
Wow.
7 days a week. After work on the weekdays and in the mornings on the weekends. I read that and immediately thought, well, that sounds like a fantastic way to forcefully drag yourself out of a severe rut.
It's a very natural assumption to make.
Yeah.
But psychologically speaking, a 7-day-a-week commitment following a period of deep depression is rarely just about physical fitness.
What is it about then?
It's usually a trauma response.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, when an individual feels like their life has spiraled completely out of their control, which is exactly what a bad breakup and clinical depression will do to you, they often try to aggressively overcompensate by grasping for absolute control.
That makes a lot of sense.
That daily gym schedule is an attempt to build a completely airtight, leak-proof structure. The subconscious logic is basically, if I never stop moving, the depression cannot catch me.
That is fascinating, especially when you look at how the timeline plays out in the letter. Because for the first 2 weeks, this airtight structure actually holds up.
It does.
They only miss one single day out of the first 14. And the reason they missed that one day is incredibly wholesome. It was a Sunday, their mom came to visit from out of town, and she wanted to go to brunch.
Brunch with mom.
Exactly. Saturday Sloth writes, I felt like I couldn't deny her.
Notice how the first crack in the armor is a beautifully human moment. We tend to build these rigid, unyielding routines in our minds, completely forgetting that we do not live in a vacuum.
We really don't.
We have families, relationships, and sudden obligations that, frankly, do not care about our workout schedules. That brunch was a standard life happens moment, but to someone relying on a 7-day structure for emotional stability,
it feels like a total failure.
It feels like a structural collapse.
And that structural collapse accelerates quickly. Because the very next week, they miss 2 days because of unexpected car problems.
Right. Life happens again.
Exactly.
Right.
So suddenly, by the time late February rolls around, the weekend motivation has evaporated completely. And the pattern they describe next is something I think most of us have experienced.
Oh, for sure.
They end up going out with friends on a Friday night, which leads to wanting to sleep in on Saturday morning. Then they wake up, look at a massive list of mundane weekend errands like groceries and laundry, and the gym just falls entirely off the radar.
And then Sunday's the same story.
The exact same thing happens on Sunday, but here is the crucial detail. They are still crushing it during the week.
Yes. This is so important.
They have stuck strictly to the Monday through Friday schedule, and they even note that the gym is actively making them feel much better in managing their depression. Yet they are consumed by a sense of failure.
It's heartbreaking.
They write, "I feel guilty that I have let myself down." And they basically beg the Luv Doc for the secret to staying motivated on Saturdays and Sundays.
Think about a time in your own life when you set a highly ambitious goal. Perhaps it was a strict diet, a daily writing habit, or a demanding fitness routine like this one.
Yeah.
Consider how that goal derailed because of minor, totally normal life interruptions. A visiting parent, a broken down car, a late night out with friends.
Normal stuff.
Completely normal. Did that derailment lead to a heavy, unwarranted sense of personal failure? Because that is exactly the trap Saturday Sloth is stuck in. They're successfully working out 5 days a week, actively managing their depression and recovering from a terrible breakup.
Massive victory.
Massive victories.
Yeah.
But their brain is completely ignoring them. All they can focus on is the perceived failure of missing the weekend.
And the Luv Doc's response to this is where the text completely pivots. Because if you read standard fitness guru advice, this is the part where you'd expect to hear about the grind set, or finding your inner warrior, or just pushing through the pain.
Right, the typical tough love approach.
But the Luv Doc does none of that. Instead, the doc reacts with pure, unadulterated shock to the 7 days a week goal.
They're appalled.
They really are. The doc writes back, 7 days a week, even the tiny little 8-pound, 6-ounce newborn baby Jesus took a siesta on the Shabbat.
It is a fascinating rhetorical strategy.
That's hilarious.
It is. The doc immediately takes this heavy, guilt-ridden situation and injects it with a massive dose of theological absurdity.
The doc really leans into the theology, calling God the OG workers' rights advocate. The column points out that the Almighty clearly recognized the necessity of limits.
Yeah.
The doc writes that God purposefully negotiated a day of rest and intentionally put it on the weekend because he knew that's when all the big NASCAR races happened.
The NASCAR detail is just perfect.
The imagery is fantastic. The doc argues that even the most treacherous, demanding celestial slave driver would agree that 6 days of hard labor creating the universe absolutely warrants a day of R&R.
And that wordplay, that imagery, it is highly deliberate. The doc is actively attempting to break the trance of shame that the reader is locked inside.
Break the trance. I like that.
Well, when you are caught in a guilt spiral, your brain is essentially stuck in a closed neural feedback loop. You are obsessing over your failure, which causes stress, which drains your energy, which makes it harder to achieve your goal.
Which causes more failure.
Exactly. And the loop continues. Standard logical advice rarely breaks that loop because the brain already anticipates it.
So the doc uses absurdity to bypass the brain's defenses.
Precisely.
The column goes on to say that most omnipotent deities would be, and I'm quoting here, plum-tuckered after digging out the Grand Canyon, or dreaming up something as wackadoodle as a duck-billed platypus. The doc pauses to just marvel at the platypus, noting that an egg-laying mammal is some seriously out-of-the-box creationism.
It really is.
And the paragraph finishes with the doc declaring, "Somebody get Jehovah a PBR."
A Pabst Blue Ribbon.
Yes. For those who might not know, PBR refers to a famously cheap working-class American beer. The idea of the creator of the universe cracking open a cheap beer on the couch after a long week is just hilarious.
And that humor is a phenomenal tool for pattern disruption. By comparing this reader's stressful little gym schedule to the literal creation of the cosmos, the doc immediately shrinks the reader's overwhelming sense of guilt.
It puts it all in perspective.
It puts the basic biological need for a day off into undeniable perspective. And this raises a rather profound point. If the hypothetical creator of the universe needs to sit down, crack open a cheap beer, and watch a car race after a long week of inventing bizarre mammals, who are we to demand absolute, unbroken perfection from ourselves?
Right. It's almost arrogant to expect that of ourselves.
It highlights the sheer arrogance of perfectionism. We hold ourselves to standards that we wouldn't even expect from an omnipotent deity.
Holy crap! You're psychotically obsessed with the Luv Doc, but can't think of a flashy gauche way to share your obsession with the world? Stop thinking and make a beeline for the Luv Doc's home sweet home on the interwebs, thepleasurecraft.com, where you can find a veritable treasure trove of sick merch that will make even your coolest friends super gel. Honestly, I don't know why you didn't already think of this yourself, but you're welcome. Have fun on the Pleasure Craft. It was made just for you. Let me spell it out for you one more time. www.thepleasurecraft.com.
The doc doesn't stop there, though. We then transition into what is probably the most bizarre laugh-out-loud tangent in the entire column.
Oh, the tangent.
The tangent. The doc offers a piece of very sound, simple advice: cut yourself some slack. But as soon as the doc types the word slack, they immediately spiral into a joke about circumcision doing the exact opposite.
It's wild.
The doc writes, I know the preceding doesn't make a lot of contextual sense because the whole point of circumcision is to get rid of the slack, isn't it?
It is an incredibly jarring transition, and frankly, it reads like a complete loss of focus on the Luv Doc's part.
It feels completely unhinged. Because the doc starts riffing on something they call eighth-day wisdom. The joke is that Yahweh scheduled circumcision for the 8th day of a baby's life, and in hindsight, this was a brilliant safety protocol.
Why the 8th day?
Because after 7 straight days of creation, God was exhausted. According to the doc, you absolutely do not want an overworked, sleep-deprived deity with a pair of trembling hands making that kind of precise cut.
Trembling hands.
Especially, the doc notes, back in the ancient days when a mohel, the person trained to perform the circumcision ritual, had to use a sharpened flint knife instead of a surgical scalpel.
Yikes.
The doc paints this terrifying picture and then just adds the word bruh.
The imagery is highly visceral. And while it seems like a chaotic tangent, it actually reinforces the core theme. When you are tired, when you are overworked, your performance degrades severely. Whether you're going to the gym, executing a project at work, or performing delicate ancient rituals with a piece of sharpened rock.
You need a break.
Rest is not a luxury. It is a fundamental safety requirement to prevent catastrophic mistakes.
But right in the middle of this wild, highly specific tangent about guys and flint knives, the doc has a sudden moment of self-awareness.
Right.
They realize they have absolutely no idea if Saturday Sloth is actually a man. The doc points out that going to brunch with a visiting mom is not just a dude thing.
No, it's not.
They assume, mid-paragraph, that the reader might very well be a female gym rat, which makes the entire circumcision joke completely irrelevant to her life.
The doc even jokes about wanting to call their own mom to verify if brunch is a gendered activity.
Yes, but then implies their mom has passed away, writing that they would have to get Jesus on the main line to ask her. And then the doc casually adds, also, we never went to brunch, so there's that.
It's pure stream of consciousness.
It is stream of consciousness writing in its purest form. When I was reading this part, I honestly thought, isn't this just a case of really bad editing?
That's a fair question.
Like, why didn't the doc just hit the backspace key, delete the irrelevant tangent, and clean up the article before publishing it?
That is the exact question that the Luv Doc wants you to ask.
Oh.
This chaotic tangent is arguably the most brilliant and subversive part of the entire column.
Really?
Yes. The doc openly admits in the text, I think it's glaringly obvious I'm not the best at staying on task. Think about what they're doing. The doc is writing an advice column about giving yourself grace, about not demanding perfection, and about accepting your own messy humanity.
Right.
To deliver that message effectively, the doc writes a spectacularly imperfect, rambling, deeply flawed essay. They are modeling the behavior.
So they're showing, not just telling.
Precisely. The doc makes a mistake by assuming the reader's gender, goes on a pointless tangent, realizes the mistake mid-sentence, and instead of hiding that flaw behind a polished edit, they just roll with it.
That is profound.
The underlying message for you, the listener, is structural. Perfection is not required to write a good essay. It is not required to build a good fitness routine. And it certainly is not required to live a good life. The doc is demonstrating, through the very act of writing, the exact grace they want Saturday Sloth to practice.
That completely reframes the entire column for me. The doc is practicing what they preach on the page, which perfectly sets up the final, most practical piece of advice.
Where they get into the reality of aging.
Yes. The column transitions into a very realistic, grounded view of aging and fitness. The doc talks about how as you get older, it becomes crucial not to be such a hard ass with yourself about exercise.
Because things happen.
They admit that life throws literal monkey wrenches into their own routine all the time. The doc writes, them's the breaks. Literally. They confess to backsliding, experiencing unavoidable interruptions, and noting that sometimes those interruptions are so severe it takes weeks to work back up to the physical condition they were in prior to the break.
This brings us to the psychological core of the text. It is about what happens after the monkey wrench hits.
After you fail.
Exactly. When we fail at a routine, and we will fail because life guarantees interruptions, we have a choice regarding which internal coach we are going to listen to. The doc uses a brilliant sports analogy here. They warn the reader against being the screaming Bobby Knight chair-throwing asshole self-coach.
For those who might not follow American college basketball, Bobby Knight was a famously successful but incredibly volatile coach.
Very intense.
Very intense. He was known for aggressive tirades, screaming at players, and in one infamous incident, literally throwing a plastic chair across the basketball court in a fit of rage during a game.
Not exactly a nurturing environment.
No, but I can vividly picture that internal voice. It is the voice that calls you lazy, the voice that tells you that missing Saturday means the whole week is ruined, the voice that demands harsh punishment for any slip-up.
It is a voice driven entirely by punitive shame. The doc argues we should strive to be the exact opposite. We should aim to be the Phil Jackson power of positivity self-nurturer.
Phil Jackson.
Yeah, another legendary basketball coach who led the Chicago Bulls and the LA Lakers. He was known as the Zen master. He focused heavily on mindfulness, on the long game, and on managing the complex psychology of his players rather than just screaming them into submission.
But let me push back on this a little bit because I know what some listeners are thinking right now.
Sarah, go ahead.
If we just tell ourselves them's the breaks every time we miss the gym, doesn't that become a slippery slope to giving up entirely? Where is the line between healthy self-forgiveness and just making excuses to avoid hard work?
That is the critical tension at the heart of all habit building. The difference lies in understanding what is actually draining your energy.
Okay, unpack that for me.
If you look at the objective facts of Saturday Sloth's situation, they're still working out 5 days a week. That is a massive, undeniable victory for someone recovering from clinical depression. Taking a few days off to rest on the weekend is not a problem.
Because the body needs it anyway.
Right. The human body physiologically requires rest to build muscle. The actual problem, the thing that is draining the reader's energy, ruining their weekends, and risking that slippery slope you mentioned, is the anxiety about resting.
The guilt is worse than the skipped workout.
Much worse. When you unleash that Bobby Knight chair-throwing mental routine on yourself, you create a cognitive load that completely prevents actual rest and recovery.
You're just beating yourself up.
Exactly. The brain is processing shame, which spikes cortisol and keeps you in a state of hyperarousal. You aren't working out, but you aren't relaxing either. You're just sitting on the couch, running a marathon of psychological anxiety in your mind.
This sounds exhausting.
It is. This exhaustion is what leads to giving up entirely, not the act of taking a day off.
Which perfectly explains why they are having such a hard time getting motivated when Monday rolls around. They have spent their entire weekend exhausting themselves with guilt instead of actually recovering.
Spot on.
So, to wrap this all up, the Luv Doc offers a very simple, grounding mantra. The subhead of the column actually reads, "The kind of person who perseveres."
It's a great mantra.
The doc tells the reader to literally say this out loud. You're the kind of person who perseveres. And the doc adds, I think that beats the alternative, right?
It represents a profound shift in identity. You are no longer defining yourself as a failure who missed the gym on Saturday. You are defining yourself as a person who perseveres through inevitable life interruptions.
The doc leaves the reader with this beautiful, summarizing thought. When you're on a long path, you're going to need to rest along the way. It is mandatory.
Mandatory?
Life is long, recovering from a broken heart is long, and building sustainable health habits is a very long path. You have to be gentle with yourself when your mom comes to town, or your car breaks down, or you simply need to sleep in on a Saturday morning.
Which brings us to a final lingering question I want to leave you with today.
Sir.
I want you to mull this over and build upon the doc's observation that the anxiety itself is the real obstacle. If we accept that taking breaks on a long path is truly mandatory, then feeling guilty about resting is objectively a massive waste of your limited energy.
Absolutely.
Consider this. What if the guilt you feel about taking a Saturday off is actually draining more out of you than the workout you skipped ever could? If you truly surrendered to the rest, enjoyed the brunch, and forgave yourself completely, how much more energy, focus, and motivation would you have when Monday finally rolls around? Thank you for listening to the Luv Doc podcast.
To read the column that spawned this podcast, go to austinchronicle.com/columns/the Luv Doc. There are probably worse things to do with your time, right?